By default, the Steam Deck is set to only reserve 1 GB of RAM as VRAM. Your games have the ability to request this to be increased by up to 8 GB, but that back and forth can result in some lag and a bit less performance. It can also make it difficult to run Windows on the Steam Deck with the default setup. So today, I'll show you how to increase this from 1 GB to 4 GB, why you may want to make this change, and the few times that this may not be the best option. To begin, we're going to need to power off the Steam Deck so that we can reboot the device into BIOS mode. We do this by powering off the device, pressing and holding the power and volume up buttons at the same time while the device boots back up. But if you need more help on getting your Steam Deck into BIOS mode, then I'll have a guide linked in the video description as well as the pinned comment here so that it's easy for everyone to find. From this menu, we go over to the bottom right option to go into the Setup utility, and then we're going to dive into the Advanced tab here on the left. Now, we scroll down through this list until you find the UMA frame buffer size option. Now again, by default, this is going to be set to 1 GB, but we can change this all the way up to 4 GB or all the way down to 256 megabytes. Once this feature has been changed to 4 GB, we press the button up here in the top left and then confirm that we want to exit while saving the changes. Your Steam Deck will reboot on its own, and it's going to load up SteamOS like normal. So, if you're curious as to why it can benefit you to make this change, let's first talk about what this means. With the default setting, you're telling SteamOS to dedicate only 1 GB of your RAM as VRAM for any game that you're playing. SteamOS will be able to request as much as 8 GB, as I mentioned, but you have to remember that the CPU will have priority over the GPU. And again, that back and forth does put the bus on the SoC through some extra work. So if you're playing games that are CPU heavy, which causes the system to use a lot of RAM for it, then the GPU may be bottlenecked since it's unable to load more textures into the RAM. Setting this feature to 4 gigs will reserve at least 4 gigs of your RAM as VRAM, causing less of a hit to performance in those cases when your GPU actually needs it. Since there's less back and forth between the hardware and the software, having this set to 4 gigs can also result in less power usage as well. And if you're worried about reserving too much RAM as VRAM, you can also change that setting to 2 GB, as that will effectively double the amount of RAM dedicated for textures. With all of that said, there are some edge cases where changing this option to 4 GB may not result in an increase in performance. I've read that Red Dead Redemption 2, for example, that when this feature is set to 4 GB, then it will only have 4 GB of VRAM, compared to if it was set to 1 GB, then it could use as much as 6 GB for VRAM. That won't make the game unplayable or cause massive drops in FPS, but it could result in your game going from 45 frames per second to around 40. This, however, seems to be a bug within the game itself, or possibly it's just how it has been programmed, as I have not seen this happen in many other games. But If you do notice something like this is happening with a game that you're playing, then share your details down in the comment section below. There is a reason why Valve set this to 1 gig as the default, but in most cases you will get a bit of a boost in performance while also noticing less heat generation due to the GPU and CPU having to negotiate less frequently, which should result in a slight increase in battery life as well. But please, share your experience with this setting down below. I would greatly appreciate it if you would give this video a like while also subscribing to the channel, as once I get up to 1,000 subscribers, I should be able to dedicate more time to the channel, so you'll have much more Steam Deck content from me then.